Hello. So in this video, we're going to talk about O Tae-Seok's play Bicycle, which I'm reading out of the Methuen Drama Anthology of Modern Asian Plays. First off, I am getting over a cold, so hopefully I don't sound too disgusting, but I will probably sniffle and possibly cough through this. Apologies in advance. So, O Tae-Seok, I was really excited to read this play, actually, because this is, as far as I know, as far as I can remember, sorry, the first Korean play that I've actually read. And I'm really interested in Korea because it occupies this sort of in-between position between the much geographically larger and sort of more culturally imperialist China and the somewhat geographically larger, but really more culturally powerful Japan. Korea is kind of, it's been called the shrimp between two whales because Chinese culture and Japanese culture have both been so influential throughout East Asia, and Korea is sandwiched right between them. And it has often been invaded, colonized, liberated, etc. So to me, Korea is a really, really interesting culture because of its sort of interstitial position. This is also a ghost story. Bicycle is also a ghost story, and I'm a fan of horror, so I was excited about that. That being said, when I read this play, I do not think I got it in the sort of full sense of, like, I was able to follow what was happening, but I feel like there are layers of depth to it that I did not pick up on, and I don't know if that's because of issues with cultural translation, where there are things that are significant to a Korean audience that I, as an American reader, simply didn't understand in the same way, or whether this is an issue of O's plays are very much sort of full process plays according to the introduction in this anthology. And so actually seeing it staged is a major component in terms of really understanding the play itself. So this is a play that seems to sort of bend or recirculate temporality in a really interesting way. The primary events of the play are set in 1980, 30 years after this event that's being memorialized. So during the Korean War, in this town, the retreating North Korean army had locked 127 people from this village in the old registry office. And then they forced two local South Koreans to set fire to it. That memorial, that atrocity has been memorialized every year in this village. And so that's the night of the events here. Or that's the night of the events being depicted. But actually they're being depicted even sort of retroactively, because we open in the town registry office with Yun Chin, who's a clerk at the registry office, and Ku, who's his co-worker. So this is the setup for the play. So Yun says, "How about writing an absence report for me?" Ku says, "What do you want me to say?" Yun says, "Well, listen, here's a rough draft," reading from a note in his hand. "One night I fainted because the ghost of a young woman called out to me from her grave by the side of the road. I was so scared that I began to shake, and later I got sick. Because of this, I missed 42 days of work, whereupon I submit this report of absence. Ku says, you're going to send that in? Yun says, well, I guess I have to unless I make up some outright lies, because that's what happened. This is why I really need your help. So, that's the setup. I'm sorry. That's the setup. And basically, Yun wants Ku to help him make this report make sense to their superiors, which is fair. If I sent in an email to my bosses here at Penn State saying I saw a ghost and got sick for 42 days, that's why I haven't been to work, I would be worried about them believing that story as well. So, fair play to you on that concern. What Ku says basically is, all right, to figure out what happened, take me through everything. Take me through the events of the night where you saw this ghost. And so they do. Yun sort of reenacts these events, and it's not 100% clear to me exactly how it's working. Whether he is actually sort of taking Ku out to these locations. But that kind of doesn't work. It doesn't really make sense. And so it seems like, in a way, Yun has almost sort of reversed time to actually bring Ku back to the events of this night itself. So, I'm sorry, there's going to be a weird cut there. I had to blow my nose. I couldn't deal with it anymore. Anyway, so, Yun, it seems like takes Ku almost back to the events themselves, because Yun had gone to this bar after work, and he was going home, taking his bicycle with him, when he meets this guy, Han, who's a villager from the father of the House of Geese. Basically, this is a sort of peasant, I guess, whose family raises geese. So that's what they're known for. They're called the House of Geese. Yun had once gotten Han a permit to plant some vegetables, and so Han regards them as great friends. Han says that his oldest daughter has something to confess, basically. What it turns out is that the youngest daughter of the House of Geese has run away. Possibly because she found out, and this is where I'm not 100% clear about the motivations, it seems that the youngest daughter has found out that she and actually the older daughter are not actually daughters of the House of Geese. They are instead daughters of the man from Solmay, who he and his wife are both lepers. But their daughters were born, and they wanted their daughters to grow up with a normal life, and so they had Han and his wife at the House of Geese adopt them. The youngest daughter apparently has found out about this, it seems, and she has run away. Yun agrees to sort of help find her. The oldest daughter is not real clear what her sort of mental state is like. She does confess that she has dreamed about burning down the hut of her parents, her actual parents, the lepers. But her actual motivation for that is not 100% clear at this point. So Yoon goes off. He finds the youngest daughter. He's like, hey, come, I'll take you home. The daughter then runs off away from Yoon because her father is coming. Seolmae, the man from Seolmae. So the man from Seolmae shows up, and he's like, hey, I just wanted my daughters to have a normal life. I didn't want them to be sort of cursed by everybody because of our disease. And Yoon is like, if you want them to have a normal life, you should burn your hut down and leave town. And at that point, they notice off in the distance where the man's hut is, there's the glow of a fire. And so the leper runs off to try and rescue his wife from this fire. Yoon gets hit by something and knocked to the ground. Koo suggests it may have been the cow. There was a weird instance where this other guy got kicked in the butt by a cow and fell in some manure. And then he kicked the cow, and the cow started like freaking out and just like jumping all over the place and stuff like that, and then ran off. I don't know, man. It's weird. So the theory, the working theory now, sorry, is that Yoon was hit by this cow, knocked out, and got sick because of that. Then Koo is like, let's like reverse this. Let's like rewind, go back a little bit, and sort of replay this last portion and see if we can figure something out that you didn't remember. So they do that, and in this repetition of the events, the man from Seolmae's wife visits Yoon. Not 100% clear before or after he was unconscious, but they interact. I think this is the ghost part, because I think, if I'm understanding the timeline correctly, and the timeline is difficult to figure out because this is somewhat surrealistic, if I understand it correctly, this woman had died in the fire and then visits Yoon possibly after he's unconscious, but he is nonetheless aware of her presence, I think, is what happens. But then there's another variation of these events in which Yoon actually goes to the burning hut of the lepers and finds the oldest daughter there, the oldest daughter from the House of Geese, and she is like tearfully confessing that she has burned the hut down because she wanted to be with her actual parents, with the lepers, and she somehow thought that if she burned their hut down, then they could maybe come live in the House of Geese, or the three of them could go away together, or something like this. Again, her motivation, her thought process is not really all that clear. But this event is set up in parallel to the burning of the 127 villagers by the North Koreans. So the second to last scene was called The House at Seolmae. It says here in the stage directions, a small hut is on fire. Sorry. The hut is only the size of a cowshed, with its roof hanging so low that it nearly touches the ground. The young woman is crying and screaming on the ground. Then, in an effort to put out the fire, she repeatedly approaches the house and then retreats. She cries out, Mama, Aigu. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I don't speak Korean. I'm sorry. Mama, oh my God, fire. What are you doing? Mama, get out of there. No, no, my mama's burning to death. Why is there no sound? Mama, oh my God, I'm killing my mother. I set the fire. Yes, I lit it to burn your disease away, to heal you, Mama, to burn everything and to heal. Aigu. Mother, I did it. I only did it because I was afraid. What are you doing? Mama, get out of there. Now we can live together. I'll take you in. But you've got to get out of there. What's she doing in there? She's burning to death. My mother's dying. Get out quick or you'll die. What am I going to do? I started the fire. Aigu. Mama, Aigu. Mama. I killed my mother. What can I do? My own mother. My mother. And it says the young woman freezes. The flame freezes. Like an auditory hallucination, a voice calling the names of people is heard. A picture of a crowd of people who died in the registry building. Fire is projected on the screen of flames. And we have the voice of a North Korean soldier who calls out these names. There's a lot of them. I'm not going to read them all to you. But the ones that are sort of immediately relevant here are Yong Chung-mok, who's Yun's uncle, and So Kwan-ho. So Yun Chung-mok. These are the two guys. Yun Chung-mok and So Kwan-ho. These are the two guys who were chosen by the North Koreans to set this fire. And each of them says the same line after they are individually called out by the North Koreans to set this fire. You say, I set the fire. Yes, I did it. Please let this living man live. And so there's this sort of synchronicity between the fire set by the young woman to try and burn away her mother's leprosy, and the fire set by Yun Chun-mok and So Kwan-ho to try and keep themselves alive for fear of themselves being burned by the North Koreans. I don't know. I don't 100. I think it's much deeper and more interesting than I'm really grasping here. But there's these sort of notions of synchronicity, of cyclical experiences, things like this.